we'll start. So, Miguel, we're going to carry this over from the last meeting. Make a recommendation on moving the security-related file system and end utilities outside of RCL.
Actually, that's been carried over for a long time. So the main question there was that the only part of RCL that is actually relying on the file system is the security bits. And so when requests from our micro ROS friends were to move that out of RCL. And so we wanted to revisit that after all the shuffling around of the security stuff to see what could make sense. And so right now, now that the security is done at the participant level, so at the context level, now using finding security artifacts is done when calling RCL init, which makes it a bit harder to move out. And so I guess one of the things we need to figure out is if we want to pull that out of RCL, how that can work, because right now, all the examples we have of things that are out of RCL are things that directly build on top of RCL and not things that are
used within
the core. Yeah. And so actually there is an example of that. There was RCL YAML parser, which was it was a bit of a tricky one because it was under RCL because it was used by RCL, and now it's been put above, but it looks to me that it's just a circular dependency that was introduced. I don't think it's actually a good solution for that. But so we could look in that direction. So I'm not sure exactly how we could do this. It may actually be easier to provide some kind of define to say compile with security or don't compile with security, rather than, which was the original request was to be able to compile or cross-compile without having file system functions. And it may actually be easier to do that than to try to move that into another package. So yeah, I'm looking for any ideas of how we could either make that pluggable, or if it would be just better to make that a define and something that you decide at compile time.
And I think that things have settled enough that we can reasonably have that conversation. Would you agree?
I think so.
Okay. So why don't we all try to check out the issue, actually look at the code, and then maybe have a conversation in Matrix. Does that make sense? Because I can only imagine not everyone's going to be up to speed with that right now.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Oh, go ahead, Raffin.
Ultimately, the only bits that the security in an RCL is just resolved. It's just checking the file system paths, and then it hands that off to the RMW implementation that then sets the QoS policy attribute for where to find the artifacts.
It does the environment variable stuff too to find the paths, which is also something that would want out of there.
That's a different question though. I didn't take the environment part there because basically RMW is using environment, and now that security logging has been put into RMW for certification.
Hey, come on, that was already being used there, okay?
Both of them are using environment too. And so RCL is also using environment. So I think it's a much harder thing to pull out than the file system stuff.
Yeah, fair point.
So
do you think we could maybe expose it where we just shuffling bytes? There's an optional bit for above RCL where it's finding the paths, loading the byte streams from the files, and then passing that to RCL. And so then RCL is totally agnostic of environment variables or file systems. Because all the RMW implementations, I think, do support where they can take in the PIM, PEM certificate format from byte string.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, you're suggesting that from above RCL, we would be able to pass as in byte form the content of all the PEM and permissions and stuff like that.
Yeah, so when we do end up moving, we're separating the two. It's kind of hard to.
That would remove file. Yeah, that would remove file system stuff from RMW, right? But RCL would still need something would still need to crawl the directory and find.
Well, I think like what would work with Ruffin's idea is like basically all this is done at a higher level. And so you basically just pass the bytes. You have already read the files kind of, and like you're passing that along. But it kind of like basically all RCL does right now is making sure that the directory where RMWs are going to be looking for files do exist. That's basically all it does. And RMW is taking care of like, hey, what kind of file do I need? Oh, do those exist? Let me load them. And so if we actually pass the bytes, like if we do read the files 2 layers above, it's going to be a bit messier to actually pass all that information down.
Yeah, it's not a very good separation of concerns.
Yeah.
Just thinking of how if you're on embedded and you didn't have a file system, but you still wanted to use security, still want that to be an option.
Yeah, at that point, what would you be using? Like
You'd be using an external key store of some kind, right?
Yeah, you would be using a TPM or something you can actually like load material from. And so at that point, maybe bytes content would not be what you're looking for either. Well, I think it's a good proof that we need to think about it and discuss it. And so, yeah, I'm more than happy to like discuss that asynchronously or like and then schedule another meeting to make a final decision if we want to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I just wanted to bring that up so that it's on everyone's mind and we can actually make progress on it later.
Cool. So yeah, folks here could take a read on that issue. It's linked in the agenda, and then maybe comment on it, or if we need to have a one-off meeting, we can, because it was only supposed to take 2 minutes and it's already been 8. So clearly there's a lot of stuff involved in that one. Kyle, you are up next with an update on Foxy security.
Yeah, this is I put this on here and put my name on there because I'm the one who put it on there. But in reality, I was hoping Mikhail would be here. Basically, I mean, I was gone while a lot of the a lot of the security stuff was kind of happening where, you know, we realized all the security tests were failing, and I know that we've now made a couple of SROS2 releases, but I'm not super clear on the current status and if there's any place that we can help, or I'm under the impression that we're kind of waiting on either a combination of Open Robotics and DDS vendors, but I want to make sure that's accurate.
Yeah, so actually that's very good of you to mention it, because the last meeting I made a call to action for anyone on an American time zone to be in sync with Open Robotics to help move the CI thing forward.
Oh, well, yeah, we're definitely there.
And so there was not like much enthusiasm last time, but now that you're like so enthusiastic about it, like I'm more than happy. So yeah, basically, I think I tried to summarize that properly. There is an issue which is called Foxy support on SROS2.
Is that up to date then?
It's mostly up to date, yeah. There is this massive, like this matrix of 3x3 of all the tests, and there is only one spot that is green. So that's a pretty good like overview of how bad it is right now.
Yeah.
And so my main concern is that like I cannot really like test on ROS2 CI because my day is their nightly jobs, so machines are always busy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so I would love to have someone in contact with them to like test things and yeah, so I have a bunch of pull requests. Everything is in that issue. I just need people to like be able to test them and to have access to machines to actually debug the issues, because I don't have a Mac machine. I don't have it. So
yeah, I don't have that either. So we'll need Open Robotics there, but I can definitely help push things along on this time zone.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, as you said, there is initial release is out. We made like basically a first release, and then we saw something was broken, so we actually made a second release. And this one is working on Linux, and now we're just like struggling to get the other ones in. And on the Cyclone side, Eclipse Cyclone DDS side, we're just waiting for them to make a release with the security stuff in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is still pending, but based on Eric's feedback, it should happen in the next couple of days, like shortly.
Okay. And faster TPS is still failing.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's their fault. I mean, like that's the same. It's failing on macOS, and the console output is jobs that's timed out with like no console output. So I have no idea what's going on there. and it seems to be passing on Windows. So I think they mostly fixed it. But yeah, like basically our main issue is that the Open Robotics CI machines are way outdated, and so now that it's time to bring everything up to speed, a few weeks before the release, it's a bit like tight.
Okay. Well, maybe we can sync offline about specific ways we can help push this forward. And that may change, by day. Like as you reach your evening, let me know if you need help. Continue pushing on and that type of thing.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's chat some more Matrix then.
Cool. Victor, would you like to tell us about ROSCON? I imagine it's going to change drastically from what was originally planned, right?
Yeah. Well, frankly, we hadn't much planned. Actually, this is more of an open question to all of us. Meaning, last year we had this nice workshop. I think Mikael and Rafin, you guys took the lead, right? Last year. So it was more of can we expect you guys to do the same this year, please? Yeah, and if not, if someone else would volunteer. So I don't think we will have the bandwidth to coordinate as well. But frankly, what happened last year was pretty cool. So something aligned would be quite nice. And also to kind of like see whether there's enough interest from all of us to at least each one of us to commit one speech. We ourselves don't have lots of bandwidth lately, but we can definitely commit to give an update of last things we've been working related to ROS and ROS 2. So yeah, it was more of that. What do you guys think?
Well, if the organizers are interested, we could certainly do it, but I feel like they would say maybe pass if it was just the same thing. I think they're looking probably for a little diversity in the types of workshops. If we have some like new ideas or something else, there's a bit of an update on with the whole deal of enclaves and context, but
it doesn't realistically change much. Yeah,
not too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I mean, basically, there's the last couple workshops between ROSCON, between IROS Madrid, ROSCON France, and ROSCON Macau. The content was pretty similar, and so I would feel bad just to offer a short update. Then if there is I'm not committing much new work these days, but I know you guys are working on various stuff. So if there is definitely stuff to present and new stuff that we want to show, that could be great to organize either a workshop or just a dedicated talk. But yeah, from my side at least, on my my humble contribution, there is not much to show. So I would feel bad organizing something.
And maybe we can do a birds of a feather session or something that's just sort of informal in 30 minutes, but not I wouldn't want to take a bunch of time if it's going to be similar to last year. I mean, otherwise, I imagine a lot of people in this call would have individual presentations they might want to do as well and submit to the talk to do remotely.
I think if we got something with the Node IDL and maybe IFC, that could be a short presentation. So if we had something to get something working over the summer.
Yeah, we're hoping to present something on that exactly.
All
Cool.
right.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for bringing that up. Sid, vulnerability disclosure policy update.
Yeah, it's just a brief update. If you remember, we spent a lot of time working through the full disclosure policy, and they got Open Robotics to sign off on it. There are a few minor changes to it. We had proposed some introductory comments from disclose.io. They swapped that out with kernel.org, but other than that, the gist of it was accepted. They signed off on
the email address. Yeah.
Yeah, the email address was, we originally we put in an Open Robotics email. We shifted that over to a ROS.org email, but they actually don't have access to any email. There's no email set up on that right now that they guard, at least. So we shifted that back to openrobotics.org, security at openrobotics.org for reporting. All this was just the draft Google Doc. That's now been turned into a rep. It's Rep 2006. Let me actually, I'll link to
I put a link in the agenda.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. So, yeah, so feel free to review that. Also, if you want any history of, our discussions, I've got still got the comments in the Google Doc if you need to review anything. But otherwise, it looks like that's moving along, and it will end up being a rep. And once that's out, I think we have a little bit of extra work to do. There were some open issues about how we're going to handle it, and linking to some other reps potentially, and just stuff like that. So we'll probably revisit that in a later meeting, just to make sure we keep moving it forward.
So maybe a quick minor question. By the way, thank you so much, Sid, for pushing this. It's really great to see this as a rep. Truly, this is going to be fantastic for the community and for overall awareness. So I'm super happy about this. I got a bit confused by the copyright. What is this exactly aiming for? Yeah, I'm like.
You mean the copyright in the rep itself?
Like at the very bottom?
Yeah, is this for this particular document?
I got the impression that was. I don't know if that's
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't know if you had a discussion about that with Chris. But for me, it seems like a fluke. All the reps are under public domain, and for some reason, one other recent rep, by copying PEP 1 and not the copyright of other PEPs, which are all under public domain, some reps now have this extra motion. But I think it's not.
Well, it says whichever is more permissive, right? So does that?
Yeah.
I don't know how much it matters. I don't know how you can get more permissive than public domain.
Yeah, that's part of what I think. Like basically, when PEP 1 was written, they had a doubt if Creative Commons was actually better than public domain, and since then they said no, public domain is the thing. And I don't know why. Like reps have always been public domains, like for 10 years, and this started to appear on. And I think it's a fluke, but we will need to confirm with Open Robotics.
Victor, go ahead and make a comment. That didn't come from us, so please, ask the question. Let's see what they say.
Yeah, I just it's a minor thing. I don't want to bother, but just thought it was weird because it was the first time I saw it that way. So yeah, but never mind. Just a minor thing. Really cool, guys. Great to have it there.
Yeah, but don't worry, it looked weird to me as well. I actually started my review on that PR, and that's one of the comments I wrote down. So
Nice.
I'll also report on it. And yeah, I would be interested in seeing either the history or at least some of the discussions that happened with regard to who is going to process it. And in some places it's hey, the security working group can help you do that. And so I would like also us to clarify that, because that's something that we didn't settle on in past discussions. And that's still in the rep.
Yeah, I'll shoot you. So this is that's a link to the Google Doc that has the comments in it. So I actually just referred to our older meeting minutes when the topic came up about what is the working group's responsibility. I mainly wanted to get the point across that we do not want to be in the operational loop. We'll certainly be in the subject matter expert loop, and be able to help facilitate things, but not on the hook for timeline.
We want to make sure this doesn't rely on us, right? I mean,
exactly.
The steering committee changes, the community changes. Really, the only constant we can really rely on is open robotics, and security is important enough that this needs to have a steady hand.
Yeah. So that should be reflected in a few of the comments that we went back and forth on.
That's perfect. And another thing, maybe it's in the comments as well, or that I would be interested in knowing where we settled on on more the behind the scenes. So now it seems that it's targeting all the ROS2 common packages, as opposed to ROS base or desktop or something, when we were going back and forth on that. And there are a lot of things in there that are way out of open robotics control. And so I just wanted to know how we plan on how the entity that is going to be processing that plans on handling vulnerability fixes for rebots or
So to that end, we might not be able to fix everything because we're not going to always be the ones fixing. We may just be alerting and coordinating and and educating users that there's this vulnerability, not necessarily fixing everything. So it's sort of that balance, with the people, with the responsible parties who will want to fix and participate, we're being, helpful as a security working group. But at a certain point, if it's a popular package and people want to fix it, we may, it's open source. We may go in, and fix it. But that's not what we really want to put on our shoulders, because otherwise that's going to be a lot of work being expected to do every security fix.
Yeah, totally. That's for sure. I was more thinking of the perspective like, okay, I'm a maintainer. And so I'm basing how I do it, like how I do the maintaining of my ROS bits based on the reps. And so now I see this rep saying that if your package is in the common packages, so you're concerned by these things. How do I comply with that?
We might want to tie this back to Rep 2004 as well, because there are we did end up with some kind of high-level verbiage about having a VDP and abiding by a deadline in a couple of those levels, rather than just saying all of ROS2 common packages. Be a little more realistic on the 2004 aspect.
Yeah, we actually, if you recall, I went to take a look at it because that was one of the questions that came up as we were going through it. If you recall, all that was in flux as we started this, so they all kind of went in parallel. I think it's important to get this out there, and then we can cross-link the different reps. If it's 2004, I think 2005 might have a factor in it, and get them all on the table.
Yeah.
Get them
and
all.
They did both just land too, so
yes.
it is still in flux. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's I think that's too. It's really invaluable to get the comments in this document, get the community start paying attention to it, and we'll see how they react. We put something out. Let's see if it causes any problems.
Yeah, for sure. I guess what I was saying is okay, if I'm a maintainer, how will I be notified? As a maintainer reading that rep, I would like to know how I should act and how I will get is it this kind of logistical details, as a maintainer, what should I do and how I'm gonna be impacted by this?
Yeah, and I think there's I think I don't have an answer for you on that. I think that's part of our next steps is this is a public facing document, tells people how to report something that have no association with ROS. We still need a document that says this is what we expect maintainers to do. This is what we expect maybe OR to do. This is how the triage should.
That may end up being another rep, huh?
Yeah, it may. It may, and that's some of the other large open source projects do something similar, where they have a outward facing, just something that's easily consumed versus somebody that's actually, in the thick of the project.
All right, thank you.
So maybe real quick, if I may, Joe.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
So connected, at least not so closely, but neither too far. One thing we have noticed ourselves internally, which helps very much get users awareness up and get them to cooperate with us when we work on any disclosures, on any patches related to vulnerabilities, is to try to organize with the end user week or a day of bugs. So one thing to consider for this group maybe is to consider organizing maybe a couple of days of bugs of ROS2, or a week might be too much of resources for some of us, but kind of like a sprint where maybe a bunch of us can allocate resources and together try to push forward this. It doesn't need to be now, it can be in the future. I think this would definitely help very much maybe deal with some of these dynamics that are being presented that may conflict. But anyhow, this is just kind of like an idea. I didn't put this in the agenda. I just came up after hearing Mikhail's concerns. But yeah, just dropping it.
Interesting point, Tom. We should think about. Okay, next up, Ted. Ted, if speaking, cannot hear you.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, sorry. You cut out when you said who was next. Yes, so I have the demo on the secure launch system that we developed. Currently, it just sets up encryption between nodes, but it's proof of concept, and it should give us something to work on with regards to automatic policy generation next. So here's a terminal. So I'm going to really quick just show the usage of it. So I've created a new launch file in demo nodes CPP that one just launches the talker, the other just launches the listener. So I'm going to do ROS2 launch demo nodes CPP. And I'm going to do talker.launch.py. And now you can pass the secure flag and the key store flag with the location of the key store. And it will generate the keys, generate the key store, and launch the node all at once. All it needed was the nodel file specifying what the node tied to the given executable was. And so now if I do ROS2 run demo nodes CPP listener I'm just going to give it a different name so that I can launch the actual listener in a moment. But name equals, you'll see the listener is not receiving any messages since the talker is encrypted at the moment. But if I do, actually, let me shrink this so it's a little bit easier to read. Sorry. If I do ROS2
Much better, thank you.
Launch listener dot launch.py, or sorry, and I pass secure, and I pass the same key store, or if this were in the same shell or an inherited shell, where it would be able to search the environment variables for the key store directory, I wouldn't need to specify the key store here. But I'm in a separate shell, so I'll just specify it again. But you can see, detected the key store already existed, created a key for listener, and was able to pick up on talker. So with that, we can make it dead simple. You can just pass the secure flag, and ROS launch can handle the entire launching of its node securely.
Ted, do you want to show the actual nodel file that allows for this? And to just you already said it, but I want to point it out again. This isn't doing anything with access control yet. We haven't gotten to that point yet. This is just pulling the identities out and creating the key material for them. But it is still relying on the nodel ability to tie executables back to actual names on the graph, because ROS launch doesn't necessarily have those the way we want.
So really quick, let me change to presenting my entire monitor. And yeah, demo nodes CPP. All it took to get it running was the addition of this small XML file that's exported in cmakelists.txt. So this is probably terribly small.
How many windows are?
Many.
Amateur.
But yeah, this tiny, small little file provided everything we needed to know in order to launch the node. I can upload this to a paste bin and include it in the chat really quick. But with that, something of this format would need to be specified for most packages, we're going to need to have a small bootstrapping effort to get it off the ground. But this provides a lot of information for introspection, a lot of information for just static analysis to see if two nodes, or if a node is compatible with existing nodes on the network when it's being launched. We can get all the remapping information from ROS launch itself. So there's a lot of functionality that can come from NodeL beyond just the automatic encryption and policy generation. And there is the NodeL file if you can't read it here. Any comments?
That's really cool.
That's pretty neat. For the, like, going forward, do you think when someone when you have several nodes that define an IDL, and then your launch file defines a composable node, we would eventually want this to do all the inferencing on figuring out what the minimum spanning access control is for the entire enclave, based on all the composed nodes.
Yep. And that feature, as I understand it, does not exist in ROS launch today, right?
I don't think we have a good way of specifying, if you have like a launch file that's launching lots of nodes, of designating each to their own enclave, which
I mean so we have a number of problems to solve there.
So basically right now launch files support composable nodes, but only in Python. And when we were working on the design for enclaves, we were just trying to explain how it would work in XML. But currently there is no composable nodes in XML, so it's already a non-starter.
Yeah.
Plus a lot of our introspection, well, it ends up going to the same end, so I shouldn't say it's Python specific. But we foresee that for sure composable nodes are going to be a pain point, and we may have to do some special consideration for lifecycle nodes as well, since we'd want to manage the key store as part of the life cycle of a given node.
Is there any aspect of the node IDL that you don't have a method of introspecting from a runtime yet? Like if you're just taking a measurement of an existing graph?
And generating a NodeL from it?
Yeah.
No, we don't have that capability today, but I suspect...
But everything should be there, right? Like we have the context, the node names. I don't think we have the package names necessarily from the graph, though.
From the graph, yeah, you're probably right. I don't think so.
Yeah, what we'd need in order to...
and do we actually have the executable name, or do we just have the name on the graph?
I believe we just have the name on the graph. So I think what we'd need is the executable name, and beyond that, does the graph... It's been a while since I've actually dug into the communications side of things. If we have a weird remapping that doesn't necessarily place it underneath the node name, will there be any issue with figuring out the connection between a given, name on the graph and its parent node, for instance?
I think, at least in DDS, you get a PID of the process and some of the telemetry. So that's maybe something, if the telemetry tool is running on the same host,
you could look it up.
Back what the process was, where the binary is, and then you could figure out binaries here, what part of the package is this binary associated. So it might be backtrackable if they're co-located on the same machine.
Which seems like we could make that a requirement,
Which would then also not work for composable nodes.
Yeah. Sorry, we're starting with the MVP here, all right?
No, that's totally fine. I didn't want to I was just thinking, trying to push the idea.
No, I know. We've been trying to go through the same mental exercise. That is a tough nut to crack. and we're hoping that it gets more clear as we continue down this path. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping.
Yeah, another thing that was interesting is Victor brought up last time. We discussed the fact of like the requirement of embedding a CA to be able to use that, and of like figuring out like use cases on like when we would want a CA on a deployed system and what type of CA. Like we were talking about intermediate CAs and things like that. And I don't know, Victor suggested like putting together a list of use cases, which I thought was a great idea. I just wanted to know if we thought about that again since, and if we have like a document or anything that we can like contribute to asynchronously.
Also the DDS implementation, at least now with Connects, they do support CA chaining. So you can imagine now you have access to all that really cool logic in X509 certificates about I will sign a sub-certificate authority that can only delegate authority one signature beyond, not like, or two signatures beyond. So you can imagine where you have like maybe a robot vendor that gives a sub-3A to a user, then uses it across the robot.
Yeah.
But they can't use it to sign something.
Another CA, yeah.
Or for a different subsystem of the ROS2 network, where like there's a OEM side of the ROS2 graph, and then there's a user side, and then you want to protect certain aspects of the API because they're mission critical or something.
I can get a doc started, Mikhail, so that we can kind of start contributing to that idea. I think that these ideas are good in theory, but I question their practicality without the ability to revoke. Like that whole story only really makes sense if you can if there's a revocation list that you're checking, and none of that's really supported. It's
supposed to be supportable, not necessarily supported.
Yeah, supportable. key difference.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned with the idea of like, hey, let's create a root certificate on the fly and ship that around.
No, yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons, right? If you do that and it's ephemeral, then you are in essence revoking. Like that's really the only revocation story we support right now, is if you don't even use the same CA for the second run, right? I mean,
that's true.
Just being practical. But yeah, let's start the document and try to poke some holes in the use cases. I think that would be a really good exercise. And we are a bit over time. I see Joe.
Well, I know we're totally over time. I just have one remark because we discussed it 1 or 2 times ago. If there is no one on the Asian time zone, can we move this meeting slightly earlier? The one that's late?
Yeah, we originally moved this because Tomoya asked us to. It's true though. He came once and he has not come since. And this time zone does exist, or does really suck for a significant part of the rest of the working group. On that front, I'm okay with this. But yeah, Joe, what do you think?
Let's move it, and if we get complaints, we'll react. It's all about being flexible, right?
Yeah.
So let's move it to an earlier time for folks.
Yeah, that would be great, guys.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, and with that, everybody have a great week or two. And Ralph, I might bug you with some Jetson questions.
He might bug you with some too.
I pinged the Ubuntu robotics RRC because I was like moving the Jetson to the bleeding edge on 2004, and I had some bumps there. Kind of fun.
Very cool. Okay, I'll bug you more. Okay, let everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Thank you.